I am Paul Butterworth, and I am the Chief Technology Officer at Vantiq. Vantiq is an application platform or system platform, if you prefer, that focuses on real-time intelligent applications. And the idea here is that you're ingesting some data in real time, usually from some sort of a data stream, and then analyzing that, typically using either predictive AI or generative AI, and then responding, right? So you analyze it to determine a situation that may be of interest, and then you want to immediately respond to the situations you've detected. And in some cases, those situations may be problems that need to be corrected or problems that need to be responded to, or it might be an opportunity and you need to take advantage of that opportunity in real time. So real-time applications are really what Vantiq is about. Its primary product is a software platform. It consists of a set of tools for building systems and then a platform that the applications that get constructed run on top of. And the focus is on real-time applications, typically real-time applications. One of the things that you're most interested in is low latencies, since you're typically getting data coming in at relatively high data rates, and you need to ingest it and analyze that data relatively quickly so you can respond in real time. The other thing that happens with real-time applications is that quite a few of them end up being distributed systems. And so Vantiq is specifically designed to help you build a distributed application. A good example of that is you might have some data that you capture out in the field, out at edge sites, as folks call them at this point in time. And the data is analyzed to some degree at the edge sites, and some summary is created of the data and possible situations that you've detected. And then those get transmitted to more central sites where data across multiple edge nodes is aggregated to give you a much more complete picture of what's going on. I noted that part of the platform is a set of tools. Those tools are specifically designed to make it very easy to build these real-time systems. It's a kind of a low-code, no-code style environment where a lot of the system that you build is specified as using diagramming tools or by declaring configurations. But of course, there are always elements of the system that are better described as text, as code. And so there is a high-level scripting language that's part of the environment for doing that. We deal with response times down to 5 or 10 milliseconds, but most of the applications are not quite that constrained. So if you can respond in half a second or a few seconds, usually that is fine for the kinds of commercial applications that Vantiq is targeting. The standard way you build an application, if you're not thinking real time, is you grab all the data, it may be real-time data, and you turn around and you stick it in a database or a data store of some kind. And then at some later time, you come back and analyze that data, generally with some sort of a BI tool or some sort of a large data analysis package. And so capturing the data and analyzing the data and then responding to it are disconnected in time, right? In real time, you're capturing the data, but the analysis and the response occurs at some later time. And if you're waiting an hour or a day or a week or a month to analyze the data and respond, that is not going to get you the kind of real-time interactivity you need for a lot of modern applications. that's where Vantiq comes in. So we ingest the data in real time, possibly at hundreds of thousands or millions of events a second, analyze it in real time, and are ready to detect situations and respond to those situations in milliseconds or seconds. What we're kind of seeing at the moment is that there's a lot of, I'm going to call it experimentation and prototyping going on, and much more experimentation and prototyping than the actual deployment of what you might think of as production applications in the environment. And a lot of that is because once you get something running, the whole, the whole issue of how do I turn this into a production application, how do I deploy it, becomes a kind of a second problem that you have to go deal with that a lot of people aren't ready for. And kind of the second part of it is that because of the nature of generative AI, right, there are always risks involved in setting these applications loose in the wild, right? Because the responses they produce are not always predictable. And so, there are always kind of risks associated with doing that. And because the systems are kind of, the generative AI systems have very general capabilities, lots of times you deploy systems that are kind of free to respond to any kind of a question or any kind of an issue. Those systems are really hard to control, and so you have to be really careful with them. And I think people are finding that it's much better to constrain the generative AI system to work in a very kind of constrained domain, right? Carefully kind of firewall exactly what kind of questions it's willing to answer or what kind of issues it's willing to respond to, so that you have a much better chance of getting a more predictable answer out of them. A lot of people are kind of dealing with that problem. That's one that we've seen in a number of the applications that have built on top of Vantiq. Everybody is thinking about generative AI at the moment, but the more traditional predictive AI systems, machine learning models, which are used to do object recognition or, basically facial recognition, is a good example of one form of object recognition. Those systems, particularly if you're working in a real-time environment, are quite efficient and they're very effective within the domain within which they work. And so a lot of the applications that get built in the Vantiq environment are a combination of predictive AI for detecting kind of interesting things, objects in the environment or conditions in the environment, and then generative AI to help form the response to the situation that you've detected. And so I always like to remind folks that you shouldn't throw predictive AI away. It has its uses and it's very efficient at doing those things, and is actually much better at certain types of recognition than the generative AI systems are. And so using those in combination generally gets you a better kind of better performing solution than trying to do the whole thing in generative AI. The only way you can, I think that you can really understand how to exploit generative AI in your environment is to go use it, right? Try it out, see what it does, see what problems it creates, because it's very likely to create some problems as well as solve a bunch of problems, and basically get some hands-on experience with it to learn how it works for the kinds of applications you want to build. Anything less than that, and you're going to get some some surprises when you deploy the systems, and not all of them are going to be nice surprises.